Have you ever held on to anger, resentment, or bitterness, believing that by doing so, you were somehow punishing the person who wronged you? Perhaps you felt that forgiving them would be letting them off the hook, a reward they didn't deserve. But what if I told you that forgiveness isn't about them at all? What if it's a profound act of self-liberation, a release that sets you free? In the wisdom of Buddhist teachings, we discover that true forgiveness is not a gift we bestow upon another, but a profound act of compassion towards ourselves. Join us as we explore how letting go of the burden of unforgiveness can unlock a path to inner peace and genuine freedom. For centuries, many cultures have viewed forgiveness as a transaction, an absolution granted to the offender, often contingent on their remorse or a perceived deservingness. This perspective, however, often traps the forgiver in a cycle of waiting, of holding on to pain until external conditions are met. But Buddhist philosophy offers a radical, yet deeply compassionate, alternative: forgiveness as an internal process, a release from the suffering caused by our own attachment to anger and resentment. Imagine carrying a heavy stone in your hand, day in and day out. This stone represents the anger, the hurt, the desire for retribution. You might believe that by holding it, you are somehow affecting the person who caused you pain. But in reality, the weight of that stone is primarily felt by you. It saps your energy, clouds your mind, and prevents you from experiencing joy and peace. The Buddha taught extensively about the nature of suffering, dukkha, and its origins in attachment and aversion. Unforgiveness is a potent form of aversion, a clinging to the past hurt that binds us to the very person or event we wish to escape. Consider the story of the ancient Buddhist monk, Ajahn Chah, who often spoke of the mind as a clear, still pond. When we hold on to anger, it's like throwing mud into that pond. The water becomes murky, and we can no longer see clearly. The mud doesn't harm the person outside the pond. It only obscures our own vision and peace. From a Buddhist perspective, forgiveness is not about condoning the wrong action or forgetting the pain. It's about acknowledging the suffering within ourselves and choosing to release the emotional chains that bind us to it. It's an act of profound self-compassion, recognizing that clinging to anger only perpetuates our own misery. Think of the parable of the two monks and the woman. Two monks, a senior and a junior, were on a pilgrimage. They came to a river where a young woman was struggling to cross. The senior monk, without hesitation, picked her up, carried her across, and set her down. They continued their journey. Hours later, the junior monk, still agitated, finally burst out, "Brother, how could you carry that woman? We are not supposed to touch women." The senior monk calmly replied, "I left her by the river. Are you still carrying her?" This story beautifully illustrates how holding on to resentment, even if it seems justified, only burdens ourselves. How then do we cultivate this liberating form of forgiveness? Buddhist teachings offer practical pathways. 1. Acknowledge the pain without dwelling. The first step is to honestly acknowledge the hurt and anger without suppressing it or letting it consume you. This is right understanding, samadhi, seeing things as they truly are, including your own emotional landscape. 2. Understand the nature of suffering. Recognize that the person who caused you pain is also suffering, perhaps from ignorance, fear, or past traumas. This doesn't excuse their actions, but it helps to cultivate compassion, karuna, and break the cycle of blame. The Buddha taught that all beings are subject to suffering, and understanding this universal truth can soften the heart. 3. Practice metta, loving-kindness, meditation. Direct loving-kindness towards yourself, then towards the person who wronged you, and finally towards all beings. This practice helps to dissolve ill will and cultivate a sense of interconnectedness. Even if you can't feel it immediately, the intention itself begins to shift your internal state. 4. Let go of expectation. True forgiveness doesn't require an apology, remorse, or even acknowledgement from the other person. It is an internal decision to release yourself from the emotional prison of resentment. This aligns with the principle of non-attachment, anatta, letting go of the need for things to be other than they are. 5. Focus on your own well-being. By releasing the burden of unforgiveness, you reclaim your energy and focus. This allows you to invest in your own healing, growth, and happiness. It is an act of self-preservation, not self-sacrifice. Consider the powerful example of Nelson Mandela. Imprisoned for 27 years, subjected to immense injustice, he emerged not with bitterness, but with a profound capacity for forgiveness. His release from the emotional prison of hatred was as significant as his physical release from Robben Island. He understood that holding on to resentment would only continue his own suffering and hinder the progress of his nation. His actions demonstrated that forgiveness is not about forgetting the past, but about freeing oneself to build a future. Another poignant example is Eva Kor, a Holocaust survivor who, after immense suffering in Auschwitz, chose to forgive her Nazi tormentors. Her act of forgiveness was not about excusing their atrocities, but about reclaiming her power and healing from the trauma. She stated, "Forgiveness is an act of self-healing, self-liberation." Her journey illustrates that even in the face of unimaginable evil, the choice to forgive can be a profound act of personal liberation. In a more everyday context, think of a parent who forgives a child for a deeply hurtful act. The forgiveness isn't necessarily about condoning the behavior, but about preserving the relationship and finding peace within themselves, understanding that holding on to anger would only poison their own heart and the family dynamic. It's a release from the expectation of perfection and an embrace of unconditional love. What burdens are you still carrying, believing they serve a purpose, when in reality, they are only weighing you down? Are you ready to embrace forgiveness not as a gift to another, but as the ultimate act of liberation for yourself? The path to true freedom begins when we choose to release the chains of unforgiveness. If you found solace in these words, please share this message with someone who might need to hear it. Together, we can cultivate a world where peace begins within each of us. Namaste.